Hello and welcome to A Deadly Silence. I'm your host, Larry Curtis, and it's the goal of all of us associated with our program to bring you current and educational information surrounding the drug and alcohol epidemic, not only here in the city of Brockton, but throughout all of our South Shore communities. Today's our guest is Richard Barnes. Richard is a gentleman in long-term recovery, and you're here to share with us some of the stories, and you're also the developer of a website called richfulthinking.com, and share with us a little bit about what that's all about.
Sure. Well, thanks for having me today. Well, again, my name is Rich Barnes. I'm my 9th year of recovery. For me, I started drinking at a very young age, at 10 years old. Usually, it was experimental at first. My parents had a lot of alcohol down in the basement, and me being the inquisitive little boy, I decided to take that first sip of alcohol, which probably was the worst decision I've ever made in my lifetime. Because
at age 10?
At age 10, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And it escalated, I liked the feeling of that euphoric feeling. Mm-hmm. And soon enough, I started drinking a lot. Kind of became my bedtime story. And I eventually ran out of all the alcohol in the house. My parents were divorced, so my father didn't live there. My mother didn't drink the hard alcohol. And I had to ask one of my neighbors to buy the alcohol for me at 13 years old. And I did that, and that went on until I was about 16. I got a fake ID at the registry, and I started buying alcohol myself in the package stores. And that went on. I got my first arrest at 16 and a half years old, drunk driving for the first time. My father was a police officer in my hometown. I grew up in Randolph.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And he got me out of that. And, in hindsight, who I am today, I'm looking at that as part of enabling me to further my alcoholism, because I was a full-blown alcoholic, I believe, at that first sip. And I got out of jail that night. I got protective custody that night. My father came and got me. Mm-hmm. And I didn't learn from it, and I started losing things. My grades started falling. I got kicked off my senior high school hockey team as a senior, which was devastating to me.
So you were an athlete, in essence, in high school, and it started to take its toll on your relationship.
I played a lot of sport. I played football, hockey, and at 17 years old, I decided to do something that furthered my addictions, per se, and it was try cocaine. At 17 years old, I rolled up that dollar bill and put the cocaine on it, what was back then a tape cassette, and never knew in my wildest imagination that when I snorted that cocaine up my nose, it was going to take 21 years to put that down.
Wow.
And a lot of losses, more arrests, drunk driving.
Now, was that a peer pressure issue thing as you were, pretty much you're in your senior year of high school, getting ready to graduate? I mean, was it a peer pressure?
I don't know if it was a peer pressure or it was just offered to me.
Okay.
And I like to drink at that time, and I like to get drunk and have a good time, per se. And why not? Again, that experimental, I've never done it before.
Yep.
Experiment lasted 21 years, so yeah, it was peer pressure. It wasn't peer pressure so much, but it more being inquisitive and trying.
Now, was it strictly cocaine, or did you progress to other forms of, drugs?
Well, it was strictly cocaine.
Okay.
I loved doing it. I loved it, and again, addiction to me is like a hand that strokes your arm and tells you you're okay. Mm-hmm. Keep doing this. Don't worry about the losses. Don't worry about your family getting upset. Don't worry about your grades falling. Don't worry about you getting kicked off the hockey team and losing all the stuff. And as you keep going and the disease of addiction progresses, and it is a disease, it's deemed by the American Medical Association. And once that disease starts taking hold of you and grabbing you and taking control of you, the claws come out on your arm and it has you stuck. Mm-hmm. And now you're an addict. And you don't really realize it. Your world is falling apart around you, and you're the only one that really doesn't see it. Everybody else looks at you and looks at me and says, "Wow, you're drinking a lot, Rich. Mind your own business. I'm okay." That hand.
Mm-hmm.
And the cocaine started escalating, and it took off probably in my 20s. And at that time, I would usually have to drink and get a little drunk before I got cocaine. Mm-hmm. And as the years went by, the alcohol started to taper off a little bit, and the cocaine escalated. And you asked me a question: was it more drugs than just cocaine? I started doing crack, and addiction is a disease of the yets. Mm-hmm. And when I was doing my cocaine and snorting it up my nose and having that good time, and I looked at people that were smoking crack and started judging them. How can you do that? You know, and looking at them and saying to myself, I'd never do that.
I'd never do that.
That's right. Mm-hmm. And sure enough, that yet came about, and someone was smoking crack, and I took that first hit, and it was at that specific time the best high I've ever felt in my life. And little did I know, it was taking everything. It was depleting me of everything.
Mm-hmm. Now, when you say it was the best high that you've ever experienced, is the addict chasing a better high every time that they're getting high? That's what you hear a lot out there.
Great question. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Einstein says it the best. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And what I was doing is I was getting high every day. I had a very bad habit, $300 to $500 a day. And what I would do is there's no better high than the first one. The first line, the first hit of that crack pipe, the first one, and then you chase it. Mm-hmm. It's like you're running a marathon trying to get that first one back. And little do you know, money's going out. You're slowly killing yourself. Everything that was important to you starts to go away, and the most important thing now is the drug.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Your family, your work, your friends are all starting to go away in your mind because that addiction's taking over, and getting high is the most important thing to you.
That's a $500 a day habit. I mean, how do you support that? I mean, realistically speaking, you were never incarcerated, I understand.
No, I was not.
Is that correct?
No.
But were you involved in illicit behavior to support that habit?
No, I was in the car business.
Yeah. Okay.
And I made a lot of money.
You were successful.
Yeah, I was successful. Mm-hmm. I was a successful addict and an alcoholic. Mm-hmm. I was a functioning alcoholic and addict.
That's the terminology.
Yeah,
right.
And I was in the finance office of a car dealership, and I was making over probably $250,000. I didn't have car payments. My wife and I had 2 cars.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And really not a lot of bills at the time. We didn't have any kids.
So a functioning addict is the terminology here a lot.
Right.
That there are a lot of addicts that are out there that functioning can get up and go to work and perform their particular roles and responsibilities, but still, have a pretty strong habit there.
It was very strong. And, I had a lot of side things at work. If I sold someone's product, they would give me cash, which the owner didn't know. Mm-hmm. And I was probably getting $3,000 to $5,000 a month cash, which no one knew, except for me.
Yeah.
But what's funny, Larry? I had no money. Mm-hmm. I made a lot of money, but had none.
Right.
I was taking out loans on credit cards to support my habit. I was taking out loans at banks. I mean, I was spending a lot of money, and my life was spiraling out of control.
Now, you mentioned you had a wife, but no children.
Right.
What happened in relationship with that relationship? Is that?
Well, I got married in 2000.
Okay.
Right. Mm-hmm. We started dating in 1995. I got married in 2000. Mm-hmm. And addicts and alcoholics are the best hiders of their disease, and they'll go to no lengths to hide it. Mm-hmm. And I hid it very well.
Okay.
Full of manipulation, lies. I mean, a bad person. Mm-hmm. And she knew nothing. And I'm not saying she was naive, but I hid it very well. And it's a sad story to tell, but she didn't know anything about it. Mm-hmm. And in 2001, she grabbed my phone bill, my cellular phone bill, and saw all these calls.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And it was my drug dealer. And I told her, she says, who you calling? And back in 2001, Larry, the cell phone bills were a lot of money back then. Minutes were 50 cents a minute, $1 a minute. Mm-hmm. My phone bill was in excess of $400. And I said, just give me the bill. And I was high on crack at the time, and I took the bill away. And she said, I'll go up with the computer. And saw the number every day. And I said, and she asked me who it was, and I told her another lie. I said it was a wholesaler, and all the lies kept going, snowballing, and I was running out of ammunition.
Yep.
And I had to tell her something. I had to give her something. And I said, listen, I want to let you know that I think I'm an alcoholic, and he's my sponsor. Okay. Okay. I had to give her something. And that night, it was in 2001. That night we threw away all the alcohol in the house.
In the house, yep. Mm-hmm.
And I'm. As funny as it sounds, I'm looking at all these dollars going down the drain. A $40 bottle of vodka or a nice bottle of wine being thrown away. Mm-hmm. And not really thinking about the thousands of dollars I'm spending on my habit a week.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And the next day, and she asked me specifically, she said, are you doing drugs? And I was high. And I looked at her right in the face, and I lied to her. I said, I can't believe you're even asking me that after I just told you what's going on.
Yeah.
Manipulation at its best.
How is, you know, I had two sons, you know, one who was very manipulative in my opinion, you know. How does that come about? I mean, the drug is taking over that whole personality of the individual and allowing them to be as convincing?
I believe so.
Yeah.
Again, we'll go to great lengths
Yep.
to make sure no one knows about us. And she started to figure it out a little bit with that cell phone bill, so I had to give her a little bit of information just to appease her.
Yep.
You know? And she asked me that night. She asked me specifically, "Are you doing drugs?" And I said, "I can't believe you're asking me that." And she said, "I'm sorry." And she apologized for asking me a valid question. You know, that's how manipulative.
You made her
I made
feel
her feel
small.
bad. You're right.
Because you opened up a piece of you.
Right. Shame on me.
Right.
Shame on me.
You
She's trying to help me.
turned it back on her.
Right.
Yeah.
She's trying to help me, and shame on me. And the biggest thing that I had going against me was fear. You know, this wall of fear that I had for so long of letting someone know who I really am. I'm an addict and I need help. And I was scared to cross that line. And I think by not reaching out my hand and saying I need help cost me a lot of years. But when I told her I could be an alcoholic, the first thing she said was, "I'll help you." You know, that fear is not real.
Yeah.
You know, and it kept me behind that wall of alcoholism and drug addiction. So we threw away all the vodkas and the wines and so forth. And then she says to me, the next day I was off from work, and she asks me point blank. She calls me from her phone and says, "Are you okay?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm okay." And I was home at the time, and she said, "Okay." And maybe 2 hours later, she comes home, and she says, I go, "What are you doing home?" She goes, "Well, you didn't sound too good." Now, this is the very next day after I told her I may be an alcoholic, and I, you know, I've had enough. My world is caving in on me, and I sat her down.
And at the same time, she's concerned and caring and wants to
Correct.
be as helpful as she can
Right.
for you.
That's right. You're right.
Yeah.
And again, shame on me for that behavior.
Right.
And I sat her down and I said, "Listen, I have to tell you something." And I started crying. And I'm not a big crier. You know, I wasn't a big crier back then because I had no heart, no compassion for anything. And I started to cry and become vulnerable. And I said, "Listen, I want to let you know that you asked me a question last night. And I'm going to tell you the truth. I am using drugs every single day. I'm using cocaine every day, and I cannot stop." See, for me, I had two famous sayings every single day. When I came to in the morning from my high and my drinks and all the straight vodka, I would tell myself, like, "I'm not doing this again today. There's no question. I'm not doing it today." I quit. And at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I cried to myself in my car while I'm driving down the street, snorting cocaine, saying, "I can't believe I did it again." You know, it had that grip on me. The talons, the talons are out in me. And when I told her that, again, she says, "You know something? I'm going to help you. I'm going to help you. But I want to let you know from right here on, you lie to me again, you drink or do drugs again, you're out of the house." And I said, "Okay, it's fair enough." And we went to a store and got out. We looked it up online of how to, you know, help your body acclimate to a different way of living off of drugs. And we got all this stuff, and I felt pretty good. You know, one day I was an everyday user except for Sundays. I was an everyday, 6-day-a-week user because I was at work all day long.
Yeah.
And, you know, when I started getting, one day went by, I was clean. 2 days, I'm starting to feel really good. 3 days, a week, 2 weeks go by, 14 days. I have not been clean for 14 days. And I was 33 years old. I was clean.
You were 10 when you started alcohol. That's 23 years later.
14 days I was clean. And I got the thought in my mind, you know, something I can drink.
do this.
Yep. I can go out. Yeah, well, I can go out and have a drink. I won't do cocaine. I can just go out and have a couple beers with my friends. And I did that. And when I did that, the thought comes back in my mind, you know something, I'll just use cocaine once, you know? And that once became every third day. Now it's every other day. Now it's back full blown every day. And she didn't know it. She didn't know. I had to become a better liar, a better manipulator.
Yep.
You know, I had to hide myself. I had to become that prisoner of my own life. And that's what I did. I became a prisoner of my own life.
So now you're in that stage of, you know, denying that you are back, you know,
Right.
as an addict. Still married.
Still married, yeah.
Any children coming along the way at this
Yep.
point in time?
In 2003, I came home from work, and my wife asked me to sit down. And she slides over this box wrapped with a bow on in 2003. And I was high. And now 2 years have passed since I told her my problem.
Right, yeah.
And that's 2 years of more manipulation, more lies, and more devastation.
She thinks you're doing okay.
Yes, she thinks I'm doing great.
Yeah, right. Mm-hmm.
And she slides over a box, and I open up, and it's a bib. I said, "What's this for?" She goes, "We're going to have a baby." And at the time, I was so high, I'm like, okay, it's great, you know.
Right.
Let me get out of here. Let me get downstairs and do my own thing. And that, you know, so I had to play the part of being a happy dad. Mm-hmm. And when in reality, at that specific moment in my life, being who I was and being how high I was, I really didn't care about my little daughter that was coming. As sad as that sounds, it still haunts me to this day. So, you know, it's supposed to be the happiest day of a parent's life having a child, and
Yep.
the happiest 9 months leading up to it, and you do all these things, and I wasn't playing a part in it. I wasn't being that person that was involved in it because I
Right.
was getting high every day. And on May 10th, 2004, I come home. It's probably 12 at midnight, and my wife's already sleeping. She's 8 months pregnant, and I'm out. You know, not a care in the world, because addiction and alcoholism is a very selfish, self-centered disease. It's all me, and you don't care about anything else.
Yep.
And I was out that night. I got home at 12 o'clock, and you know, when you do cocaine, it's an upper. You don't sleep for a long time. And I was up probably 2 o'clock in the morning, shaking, crying. I don't want to do this. Getting real depressed, drinking NyQuil, shots of vodka, and pills, and Benadryl, all this crazy, insane thing. And 2 o'clock in the morning, my wife says, "Rich, my water broke." So now my little daughter's coming.
Yep.
And as sad as it is, I was upset because I didn't want to go to the hospital. My daughter's here.
Right.
I mean, think of the thought process in an addict's head when he's upset that his baby's coming.
Yeah.
It's not sane thinking.
Right.
You know, it's a sick mentality. And we go to the hospital, and all I can think about is how upset I am because I want to go to sleep. And my wife was in labor for 23 hours. And on May 11th, 2004, my little daughter comes. And all I can think about, Larry, is getting high.
Wow.
You know, I have her in my arms, and I'm there physically, mentally, and spiritually. I'm out the window.
Right.
And I give my daughter back to the nurse, and my wife has had a C-section, so she's sleeping.
Yeah.
And I take off. I make a phone call, and I go get high again.
So what was the turning point that took you from that roller coaster ride, you know, now you're a father, you know, that made you turn around?
Well, my daughter, the horrific things that I did when I was from the day my daughter was born on May 11th, 2004, till November 3rd, 2006. I mean, when you do a lot of drugs, Larry, paranoia starts to come in. It starts to play a big role in your life. And I was, again, I talked to you about that. I was a prisoner of my own life. I was also a prisoner of my own home. And as funny as this may seem, I always thought there was someone under my bed or in my closet. So I would carry a big butcher knife around my home with me while everybody was sleeping because I'd be up. And that went on for a long time. And when my daughter was an infant, I would feed her. I'd have her in my arm with a bottle, but the butcher knife would be down here and just looking around my room. And I thought it was okay. I thought it was a normal way of living, you know. And that went on, and my daughter, when she was 2.5, it was November 3rd, 2006. I finally reached the boiling point in my life. See, that first drink at 10 years old, and that first hit of cocaine at 17 years old, has escalated into a full-blown addict. That's the disease of alcoholism and addiction, progressively getting worse in my life. And on November 3rd, 2006, I've had enough. And there's only 3 places, you probably heard it, where addiction will take you. It's either jail, institutions, or death. Well, I wasn't going to go to jail, and I'm surely not going to go to an institution. So being dead was a valid way out for me. And suicide came in my mind, and that night I had the knife in my hand, And I went into my daughter's room. She was 2.5 years old, sleeping comfortably in her little bed. And I prayed. I said to her goodbye. I said goodbye to her because I was going to kill myself. And I went into my bedroom, and my wife was comfortably sleeping, not knowing who I was. Had no idea. I didn't even know who I was. And I said goodbye to her. And I got on my knees, and I put the knife on my wrist, and I pushed down on it, and I was gonna ready to do it. And I prayed for the first time. And I prayed to God to please watch over my little daughter and make sure she knows when she gets older how sick her daddy was.
Yep.
And to my wife, please just take care of her as well and make sure she knows how sick I was and how sorry I am for doing this. Or help me. Or help me. And that was November 3rd, 2006. I woke up November 4th, 2006, and, I felt 10,000 pounds lighter for some reason that I didn't know about yet, And I looked down on my bed, and the butcher knife was there. I picked it up, I put it away, and I said, I'm not doing this today. I'm not, And I had no idea what was going on yet, but I felt that lightness about me. And that day went by, and I didn't use, and I didn't drink, And I sought out a friend of mine whose dad was an alcoholic. For some reason, I don't know why I'm doing it yet, Like, what's coming over me? And I sought out my friend. His father was a recovering alcoholic for 20 years. And so I called him. I said, listen, I have a problem. And he met with me, and he sat down with me and told me some work I should do if I really think I'm an alcoholic, and I really want help. And I said, I do. I do need help, and I do want help. And I started doing this different stuff. I started doing this different way of living. And I was clean for 16 days. Now, that beat the 14 days back in 2001. Yep. And he said, Rich, I want you to sit down. And I said, that arrogance was still inside of me. And I said, for what? He says, because I said so. So I sat down, and he said, I want you to know from this day on, you never have to pick up a drink or drug ever again. And I was like this, and when he told me that, I sat back in my chair because it was such a profound statement to me. I really never have to pick up again? I never have to drink or drug ever again? Because it was now it's 28 years. He says, no, you never have to again. And that's when my journey started right there. And in 2008, now I'm clean for a year and a half. Went by. And my life is phenomenal. I left the car business in November 2006. I left the car business. I'm giving up $250,000, 2 company cars. I'm giving up everything, and I don't know why yet. I have no idea. And I started a job in Newport, Rhode Island, 45 miles away. And the company, the owner is a Christian, high into church and God, and the president is the same way. Many people are into this church and things, and I start down there, and my life takes off further. So that
it's interesting that the role that religion plays in the recovery aspects. When you're talking to many individuals that are in long-term recovery, there's always an element of faith. That's it's a foundation of recovery to a certain extent.
I'll tell you, the only time I ever prayed was when I was a little boy in a CCD class. That's no joke. And I never really believed I believed in God and all this stuff, but I never really asked him for help. And so I started
that night on November 4th.
November 3rd, 2006. November 4th, I woke up, I went to my an AA meeting. And so now I'll fast forward a little bit. I'm clean a year and a half. I'm doing the work. I'm doing everything this gentleman says. I'm building a foundation of support, brick by brick, with people in my life that are clean. I'm getting help. And in 2007, my wife passes me another box. We're having another baby. But I have to tell her something. I have to tell her the truth. And I tell her the truth. And I sat her down, and I said, listen, I want to let you know I haven't been clean since 2004. And that opened a big can of worms, Larry, because now she knows I've been high with my daughter who's been alive. Didn't talk for a month or two, And then my other daughter, Avery, was born, and I was there the whole time, I was in the delivery room. I was looking over the shoulder, Doctor tells me to sit down. I said, listen, I'm not going to miss this. you
Yeah.
know? And I tell you, my life has been taken off, and here I am 8.5 years later, clean, because I asked for help.
So tell us a little bit about richfulthinking.com.
Richfulthinking.com is my website. I speak at schools. I do a lot of speaking
Okay.
at schools around Massachusetts. I have 2 tomorrow and 2 on Friday up in Haverhill. 4 schools in 2 days I'm pretty excited for.
And what grade level are you looking at?
I do middle schools and high
Middle
schools.
schools, to high schools, okay.
Yep. And what Ritual Thinking is, basically it's about me, who I am, what I've been through, but it also has some entities on there that someone could go on there if they're down, or if they think they have a problem, and they can call these hotlines. But I also put my personal information on there. I'm an open book, and I'll talk to anybody. My phone number's on there, my email's on there.
Yep.
Anybody looking for help who wants it, who wants to do the work, can call me at any point in time. My phone's on 24/7. My email's on there. My purpose in life that I found out is to, in my recovery, that I've gotten so freely, is to give it away and help other addicts and help other alcoholics achieve what I have. And I remember one time I was in an AA meeting, and there was someone like me up in the chair. He says, I love life, I love it, I'm sober, I'm clean. I'm like, you are not, man. There's no way. But I'm here 8.5 years later, Larry, saying it's possible. Anything is possible for any addict, no matter how deep they go, to get clean and live their lives happily one day at a time.
And is it true the addict has to want it before it can happen?
Yes.
Pretty much.
Yeah, and they have to want it.
Yeah.
They have to do and be willing to do the work.
Yeah. Okay. Well, this is a fascinating story, and the work that you're doing out there is, phenomenal, I'm sure. If you had one thing to say to the parents out there who might be watching, who might be dealing with a loved one who has an addiction issue, what would that be?
Support. Just be supportive. Don't get angry. I know how upsetting it is to look at someone you love that has an addiction or alcohol problem and just want to wring their necks. I know how that is.
Yep.
But we, as addicts and alcoholics, just want to have support and know that we're loved. Hugs and embrace. Just embrace them and tell them that when you're ready, we're there for you. Because if someone pushes me and starts yelling at me, stop, Rich, you're killing yourself, I'm pushing you away.
Yeah.
Many people have tried that with me, and I didn't listen, But when you give a hug and say, listen, I'm ready whenever you are to help you walk your journey,
Yeah. Well, Rich, this was a fascinating story. Unfortunately, our time is up.
Okay.
I told you it would fly by really quick. On behalf of all of us here at The Deadly Silence, we hope you enjoyed this episode, and we'll see you again next week. Thank you.